A very good evening to one and all present here. My name is Atharva Agarwal. I am a third year electrical engineering student at IIT Delhi and working as a research engineer at MRC. I have worked under Shlok sir on the topic of whale call detection in underwater acoustic recordings and estimating the ROC for passive sonar simulation. Now, talking about the project objectives, in the underwater environment, there are several sounds. These sounds include the dolphin sounds, the whale sounds, ship sounds, and unwanted noises as well. So we want to detect and separate these different kind of sounds. And why does this matter? Because it will help in estimating the ROC for passive sonar simulation along with the synthetic sound generation and mainly will help in the marine biology research task. Talking about the problem statement in detail, the challenge is since these recordings are noisy and mixed, it is very difficult to separate them from the ship noises and other marine life and ambient ocean sounds, which is considered as a significant hurdle. Our goal will be to develop a robust classifier which is capable of accurately predicting the presence or absence of a whale call in any given audio clip. The features which we will be using will be considered of the .aiff audio files for the sampling rate of 2 to 48 kilohertz which are recorded from hydrophones, and the target which we will be focusing on will be the binary labels of a whale call or a non-whale call. The evaluation metrics will be the receiver operating characteristic area under curve, the ROC AUC, which I will be showcasing for the results in the end, which we have obtained on our data. Talking about the practical application, it will help to a large extent to avoid several collisions between the vessels and the whales by alerting the vessels in advance for the existence of some whales in their paths, and will help in marine biodiversity monitoring along with the autonomous ocean systems. And not to forget, it will help a lot in supporting the marine research because it will reduce the manual labor of signal analysis and will automate it. But wait, what is unique about this project? There have been several projects like this. In the traditional way of identifying these sounds, they have done for some separate structures. But what we have done is that we have mixed the cepstral as well as the spectral features, leveraging the MFCCs and the spectral centroid and bandwidth. And the model which we have used for the training set is the random forest method. It is a low complexity model which we have chosen because the easy practical integration of that model. But how does this project basically fits in the UDA framework? It will help in the passive sonar based signal intelligence along with the real time detection in noisy marine environments. And it will help and lay foundation for the integration of the marine mammal detection into naval and civilian acoustic monitoring systems. Talking about how we have collected the data is collected from hydrophones as the raw signals from underwater environment. These were the analog signals which were then converted to the digital signals. What we have done is we have taken the amplitudes at the sampling rate, understanding them in an easier term. Let's say we have a 2 second of audio file and we have a sampling rate of 16,000 hertz per second. So for 2 seconds, the total samples of amplitudes which we have covered are the 32,000, and the sampling rate actually which we have used varies from 2 kilohertz to 48 kilohertz. And these samples which we have collected over 30,000 other clips. Also, please be aware that we have used the pre-processing for the pre-segmented clips of consistent duration. Now, the model which we have used, we need to train and we need to extract certain features from those amplitudes so that we can train our model. So the question arises, which feature to choose, why to choose, and why not to choose the other. The major features which I have chosen are the MFCCs, which I will be talking in detail in the next slide. The spectral centroid, what is it and why we have chosen this? It is considered as the center of mass of the audio spectrum, and it gives insight into the brightness or the pitch perception of the sound, which helps in distinguishing the tonal patterns. Also, another spectral feature which we have used is the bandwidth. Again, why? Because it gives the richness or the quantify the richness or the complexity of the sound, which is useful for differentiating the narrow band calls, because it is something what you call as the spread of the frequency content around the spectral centroid which we have calculated. All these features we have averaged and taken per clip, and then we have trained our model based on that for easier detections. As I said, talking about the MFCCs in detail, they stand for the mel frequency cepstral coefficients. They are total 13 in number which are obtained. And as you can see in the heat map, there's a whole lot of complex process to evaluate from the fast Fourier transform to the discrete cosine transform which we take. But For easy visualization for each right whale call and the non-whale call, you can see in the heat map the redder areas show the higher values of the MFCCs. The rows are 13 and on the x-axis we can see the time. The redder areas are the higher values of the MFCCs where the blue areas on the non-whale call represents the lower values of the MFCCs. This shows a consistent pattern for the whale calls and the non-whale calls. This sequence converts raw audio into a compact representation that emphasizes perceptually significant details. So the total features which we have used are the 13 MFCC features, the spectral bandwidth, and the spectral centroid. So total 15 features we have used. Now, among these 15 features, it is very important before we train our ML model to see the correlation. So what does this mean? It basically indicates if the correlation between two variables is high, then it would lead to overfitting. Like, for example, if there are two variables which have a correlation greater than zero point 0.7, we can drop one of them so that it does not lead to overfitting in our model. So as you can see, all the values which are present are significantly less than zero point 0.7 and our values are good to go for the model. Talking as the combined rate of visualization for the MFCCs. This graph is obtained not for one sound sample but for combined 32,000 samples by taking the vector average. The blue uh, graphs represents the non-whale calls, whereas the red graphs represent the whale calls. And the interpretation I would like to tell you is that these are the separate distributions which we have seen together in order to distinguish them. And the overlaps which you can see are higher on the higher MFCC side, like the MFCC 13, 12, 11, 10, but they are lower on the 1, 2, 3, etc. Also, you can see the non-whale calls are much more symmetric, whereas the whale calls are much more skewed and they have the skewed distributions. Now, why we have chosen the random forest model? What is the use of that? So first of all, let's understand what is random forest. It is like if I have an audio file, I am giving it to certain n groups of people, of intellectuals, and I am asking for votes whether is it a whale call or a non-whale call. So these groups is what we call as the decision trees, and they are trained on the random probability vectors of the inputs. That's why the word random comes. And these trees in a whole vote whether it is a whale or a non-whale call, and then these trees combinedly make a forest, and that's where the word random forest comes from. And it helps to reduce the noise and overfitting. Also, since we are using the 15 vectors, 15 sized vectors, the 13 MFCCs, the spectral bandwidth, and the spectral centroid, it is a small to medium sized data, and random forest works perfectly on that. Talking about the training set, it was a traditional 80-20 split where the 80% of the data set was used to train the model, whereas the 20% was used to test the model. Talking about the results, you can see the score which we obtained was 0.89. This strong performance indicates the model's significance ability to generalize across various noise conditions and a diverse range of whale call types, effectively distributing them for the background environment. But wait, what is the future work? The future work will mainly depend on estimating the ROC for the passive sonar simulation along with synthetic signal generation, which will help in the research areas for some undistinguished sounds which we have received and we have less in number. Along with that, we will be focusing on the field deployment, the real-time detection with embedded systems along with ocean-deployed hydrophone networks with cloud processing, helping in future advanced research in this domain. Also, the advanced modeling approaches using the CNNs, RNNs, and the transformers will greatly contribute to the research. Thank you and have a nice day. Kindly feel free to reach out to me at atharv.mrc@udafoundation.in.